before bed. Tonight, we read The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. The mountain you have to climb is yourself, and the way up is gentler than you think. Have you ever noticed how often you get in your own way? You know what you want. You can see it clearly in your mind. The calmer life, the finished work, the healthier days, the braver, lighter version of yourself. You promise it to yourself again and again, and then somehow you don't go there. You wait, you put it off, you pick the small comfort instead of the big change, and later, lying here in the dark, you wonder why. Why is it so hard to do the very thing you most want to do? You might call it laziness, or weakness, or a lack of discipline. You might be quietly hard on yourself for it most nights. But what if it was none of those things? What if there was a tender reason hidden underneath? And once you saw it, gently, the whole struggle began to soften. So tonight, just for a little while, let's stop the fight with yourself. Let's set it down and walk into this book together, not to fix you. There is nothing in you that needs fixing tonight, only to rest and to understand your own heart a little more kindly. Let me tell you a little about where this book comes from. Its author, Brianna Wiest, is a writer. For years, she has written quietly about the inner life, about feelings and healing, and the slow work of becoming. Words she shared began to travel, read by millions of tired people, late at night, looking for something true. And the thing she kept returning to was this strange human habit of standing in our own way. Because she had lived it, she knew from the inside what it was to want something deeply and to keep slipping back from it. To make the same promise on Monday and break it by Wednesday. To watch herself reach for the very things that hurt her, while the life she longed for waited, just out of reach. And she grew curious, not angry, curious. She began to wonder whether self-sabotage was really the enemy, or whether it was something more like a frightened part of us, trying clumsily to keep us safe. So she gathered what she had learned from psychology and from her own long nights, and she shaped it into this book, a quiet, steady guide, not for experts, but for ordinary people, people like you and me, who are tired of fighting themselves. And the questions it answers are the ones we whisper to ourselves when no one else can hear. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I want to change and resist changing at the very same time? And is there a kinder way to finally climb out? So let's begin with the strange and beautiful idea hidden in the title. The mountain is you. For most of our lives, we imagine the obstacle as something out there. The mountain is the bad luck. The mountain is the other people. The mountain is the wrong timing, the hard childhood, the world that won't cooperate. And sometimes, yes, life is genuinely hard, in ways that are not our fault at all. But Wiest gently turns our gaze inward. She suggests that so often, the thing standing between you and the life you want is quietly you, your fears, your old habits, the patterns you learned so long ago that you no longer notice them, the story you keep telling about who you are and what you're capable of. And at first, that might sound heavy, like one more thing to blame yourself for. But sit with it a moment, and you'll find it's the opposite. Because if the mountain were out there, in the world, in other people, fate, then you'd be powerless. You'd be waiting forever for the world to change. But if the mountain is you, then the climb is yours. It's in your hands. The very thing that's been in your way is the very thing you have the power to move. That is the quiet hope at the heart of this book. Your greatest obstacle and your greatest freedom live in the same place, in you. And the climb up the mountain is really the climb toward becoming yourself. So now let's look closely at the mountain, at this thing we call self-sabotage. Here is what Wiest wants us to understand more than anything else. You are not sabotaging yourself because something is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not your own enemy. Self-sabotage, she says, is not self-hatred. It is, strangely, a kind of self-protection that has lost its way. Think of it like this. Inside you, there are two parts. One part has goals. It wants the new life, the brave change, the open door. That's the part that makes the plans, here in the quiet of the night. But there is another part, a deeper, older part. And that part doesn't care about your goals. It cares about your safety. It cares about not getting hurt. And when those two parts want different things, when one wants to grow and the other wants to stay safe, the safe one usually wins. Quietly, without you ever quite seeing it happen. So you don't fail to change because you're lazy. You fail to change because some hidden part of you believes that staying the same is keeping you safe. The procrastination, the avoiding, the reaching for the old comfort. These aren't flaws in your character. They are strategies. Old, well-worn strategies that some frightened part of you learned long ago to soothe a pain, or to dodge a risk, or to meet a need that wasn't being met. They worked once. They got you here. They just don't fit the person you're becoming. And here is where a little emotional understanding changes everything. For so much of our lives, we treat our feelings as facts. If we feel afraid, we believe there must be danger. If a task fills us with dread, we believe the task itself must be wrong for us. But Wiest gently asks us to look closer. A feeling is not always the truth. Sometimes it's only an old echo, a worn groove in the mind, a reaction we learned so long ago that it fires now without ever asking us. The dread you feel before the very thing you most want to do is so often not a warning at all. It's just the fear of change, wearing the mask of wisdom. And once you can feel a feeling and still gently choose what you do next, you are no longer ruled by your own weather. You become the quiet one who watches the storm move through and decides, calmly, where to walk. So tonight, you might practice that, very softly. Notice a feeling, here in the dark. Maybe a small restlessness, maybe a faint unease that you can't quite name. And instead of believing it or obeying it, just hold it the way you'd hold a tired child's hand. I feel you. I'm not afraid of you. But you don't get to decide for me anymore. That small space between feeling something and being ruled by it is where all of your freedom quietly lives. And when you see yourself this way, something inside you can finally unclench, because you stop fighting yourself like an enemy and you start listening to yourself like a friend. So if self-sabotage is really a part of us trying to protect us, then the way through is not to attack it. It's to listen, to ask gently, what are you so afraid of? What do you really need? This is the turning point of the whole book. Underneath every pattern that holds you back, there is an unmet need, some quiet hunger that never got fed. Maybe a need to feel safe. Maybe a need to feel worthy, just as you are. Maybe a need to be seen, or held, or allowed to rest. And when a need like that goes unmet for long enough, we build a habit around it, a coping habit, something that soothes the ache. Just for a moment, the scrolling, the overworking, the pushing people away before they can leave, the waiting until the last minute, so that if we fail, at least we have an excuse. None of these are random. Each one is a clumsy attempt to take care of a real and tender need. And here is the gentle truth Wiest offers. You cannot shame a need into disappearing. You can't force it out, or scold it away, or simply decide to be different. The need will keep finding the back door, as long as it goes unheard. But when you finally turn toward it, when you ask what it wants, and you listen, something shifts. The pattern loosens its grip. Not because you fought it harder, but because you finally gave the frightened part of you what it was reaching for all along. And so much of that unmet need is really about the past, because the patterns that hold us now were almost always born back then, in a moment when we were small and the world felt too big, in a love we reached for and didn't quite receive, in a fear we had no one to help us carry. We were doing the best we could with what we had at the time, and the habits we built to survive those moments, we are somehow still carrying tonight, long after the moment has passed. Wiest offers a tender way to think about this. The past is not a weight you have to keep hauling up the mountain. It's more like a heavy coat that you put on long ago when the air was cold. It kept you warm. It served you. But the weather has changed now, and you've been wearing it so long, you've forgotten you can take it off. Releasing the past is not about pretending it never happened. It's simply about letting it stop deciding your tomorrow, about gently, one quiet day at a time, loosening its grip on who you're allowed to become. So tonight, you might ask yourself, softly, as you rest, the thing I keep doing, that I wish I wouldn't, what is it trying to give me? What comfort? What safety? What small relief? And where did I first learn that I needed it? You don't need an answer right now. You don't need to dig or solve or fix anything in the dark. Just the question is enough. Just the willingness to look back, not with blame, but with the soft eyes you'd give a child who only ever did their best. So how do we begin to climb? Slowly, gently, one small step at a time. Wiest offers these many quiet ways forward. Tonight, I'd like to share 6 of them with you. You can try each one, softly, as you listen. Nothing to force, nothing to get right. The first is to meet the part of you that's afraid. Somewhere inside you is a younger, more frightened self. The one who learned, long ago, that the world wasn't always safe. And so much of your sabotage is that small self, still trying to protect you, in the only way it ever knew. So instead of being angry at it, try, just for a moment, to be tender with it. Imagine speaking to it the way you'd speak to a frightened child. I know you're scared. I know you're only trying to keep us safe. But I'm here now, and we're going to be all right. You don't have to fix anything tonight. You only have to turn toward the scared part of you with warmth instead of war, and feel how something in your chest begins to soften when, for once, it isn't being blamed. The second is to make the next step impossibly small. The mind loves to picture the whole mountain at once, the entire change, the new life, all of it, complete, and it freezes. Of course it does. The whole mountain is too much to carry. So Wiest suggests the opposite. Make the step so small it seems almost silly. Not transform your whole life. Just one tiny shift today. One glass of water. One page. One honest sentence. One small turn toward the thing you've been avoiding. So small that the frightened part of you doesn't even sound the alarm. And these tiny shifts, these almost invisible steps, quietly compound, one after another, until one day you look back and find you've climbed further than you ever thought you could. The third is to act before you feel ready. We've been taught to wait for motivation, to wait until we feel like it, until the fear passes, until the confidence arrives, until the moment feels right. But Wiest gently unties that knot. The feeling, she says, so often comes after the action, not before it. You take the small step first, and the momentum follows. The motivation is born from the moving. So you don't have to feel brave to act bravely. You don't have to feel ready to begin. You simply do the next small thing while the fear is still there, while the doubt is still talking, and let the good feeling catch up to you later. Tonight, there's nothing to do, of course. But tomorrow, you might let the doing come before the feeling. The fourth is to let yourself grieve the old life. This one is quieter and deeper, because to become someone new, you have to let go of who you've been. And even when the old self was hurting you, even when the old life was too small, there is a grief in leaving it. It was familiar. It was yours. So Wiest invites you not to rush past that grief, but to honor it, to say a soft goodbye to the version of you that got you this far. The one who coped, the only way they knew how. Thank them. Truly, they survived a great deal. And then, gently, let them rest. You're not betraying who you were. You're growing out of clothes that no longer fit. And that too is a kind of love. The fifth is to imagine the next version of you, not as a fantasy, but as a real, quiet possibility. Picture the person you are becoming. Not perfect, never perfect, just a little freer, a little calmer, a little more themselves. How do they spend an ordinary morning? How do they speak to themselves when they make a mistake? What do they no longer carry? And here is the gentle practice. When you face a choice tomorrow, you can ask softly, what would that version of me do right now? And then, just for that one small moment, you do that. You don't have to become them all at once. You become them. One small choice at a time, until one day, without noticing, you simply are them. The sixth is to build a life you don't need to escape from. So much sabotage, Wiest says, is really just escape. We numb, we avoid, we run, because some part of our life feels unbearable to sit inside. So the deepest work isn't only to stop the running, it's to slowly build a life that you no longer want to run from. A life with rest in it, with meaning and quiet and things that are truly yours. And and you build it the same way you climb anything. One small, honest choice at a time, choosing what nourishes you just a little more often than what merely numbs you, until slowly the present moment stops feeling like something to flee and starts feeling like somewhere you'd actually like to stay. These 6 ways all sound simple, and they are, but they take gentle practice, again and again, because the old patterns are strong, and they will keep pulling you back, and each time they do, all you have to do is notice and gently begin again. Now, perhaps a worry has crept in. If I stop forcing myself and being hard on myself, won't I just stand still? Isn't a little self-criticism what keeps me moving? Don't I need the pressure, the guilt, the harsh inner voice to ever get anywhere at all? It's a fair question, and Wiest answers it kindly. The harsh voice, she says, has never been what moves you. It only frightens the tender part of you deeper into hiding. It makes the mountain feel taller and your legs feel weaker. Real change doesn't come from self-attack. It comes from self-understanding, from finally seeing why you do what you do and meeting that reason with compassion instead of contempt. The frightened part of you will never come out while it's being shouted at, but spoken to gently, listened to, understood. It begins at last to trust you, and a self you trust is a self that can finally move. So no, you don't have to drive yourself up the mountain like a hard master with a whip. You can walk beside yourself like a patient friend, and you'll be amazed how much further that kind of company will carry you. And here is something we so easily forget. We keep believing the next version of us lives on the far side of some enormous, dramatic change. One great leap, one perfect day when everything finally clicks. And so we wait, and we never quite begin. But Wiest offers a softer truth. You are not one transformation away from a new life. You are 1,000 tiny choices away, most of them so small, no one else would even notice. The glass of water, the kind word to yourself, the single step taken before you felt ready, the old habit gently set down. This is how a person actually changes. Not in one heroic moment, but in the quiet accumulation of small, brave, ordinary days. You are not climbing the mountain in a single bound. You are climbing it, one breath, one step, one choice at a time. So then, who are you underneath all of this? You are not your old patterns. You are not the habits you learned when you were small and afraid. You are not the story your fear keeps telling about what you can't do and who you can't become. Those things move through you, but they are not the whole of you. They are the weather on the mountain, not the mountain itself, because underneath the fear, underneath the sabotage, underneath every coping habit you ever built, there is something steady, a deeper self, the one who is listening right now, the one who wants to grow, the one who, even on the hardest nights, never quite stopped reaching for something better. That self has been there all along, patient, waiting, and the whole climb, every small step, is really just the long, slow journey of coming home to it. And the summit, Wiest says, is not perfection. It's not a day when all your problems are gone and you never struggle again. The summit is a new relationship with yourself, one built on understanding and patience and quiet trust. It's becoming someone who no longer needs to run from their own life, someone who can meet their own fear with tenderness, someone who is, finally, on their own side. So before we end tonight, let's bring it gently down to earth, into ordinary life. In your relationships, this book asks you to notice the old patterns, the pushing away, the walls, the running, and instead of judging them, to ask what frightened need is underneath, to turn toward the people you love, one small, honest moment at a time, even when the old fear says it isn't safe. In your work and your days, it asks you to make the next step small, to act before you feel ready, to stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect mood, the perfect version of yourself, and to simply begin gently with what's in front of you tonight and tomorrow. And when the old patterns return, and they will return, it asks you not to despair and not to attack yourself, but to meet them with the same tenderness you'd offer a frightened child, to understand, to soften, and to take one more small step up the mountain. Anyway, we've talked about a great deal tonight, from the mountain that turns out to be ourselves, to the frightened, tender reasons we stand in our own way, and the gentle, patient climb toward becoming new. And maybe some of it felt close to home. That's all right. You don't have to understand it all at once. You don't have to change a single thing tonight. This book is like a kind friend. It won't rush you and it won't judge you. It only reminds you when you need it that you are not your own enemy, that the climb is yours, and that the way up is gentler than you ever believed. And please, don't turn this into one more thing to get right, one more mountain to conquer by morning. The whole point is to stop fighting yourself, to loosen the grip, and you can begin in the smallest way right now by letting this very moment simply be as it is. So let me leave you with one last gentle practice. Set down every thought about this book and just feel your breath. Notice how it moves, all on its own, without any effort from you. Now bring to mind, very softly, one small part of yourself you've been hard on, some habit, some fear, some way you keep getting in your own way. And instead of fighting it tonight, just place a hand in your mind on that frightened part of you and say, gently, I know you were only trying to keep me safe. Thank you. You can rest now. I've got us from here. Listen to the sounds of the night. Maybe a car, far away. Maybe a faint hum. Maybe just a deep, soft silence. And feel your body now, held by the bed beneath you, tenderly supported, warm and heavy. There is no mountain to climb in this moment, nothing to fix, nothing to become. In this moment, you are allowed simply to be here. There is no past to fix, no future to win. There is only now, only you, here, breathing, resting, already whole. Tomorrow, the old patterns may return. You may catch yourself standing in your own way again. And that's okay. Don't blame yourself. Just notice it. Meet it gently and take one small step toward the life you want. That's all. Every noticing, every small, tender step is the mountain, slowly becoming the path beneath your feet. Good night. Thank you for being here with me tonight. May you rest in the quiet of this moment and find your way back to the peace inside you. I'll see you with the next book.